Director Patel, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
When you were here for your confirmation, we talked about your so-called enemies list. It appears to me that there have been adverse actions of various kinds taken against about 20 of the 60 people on your enemies list. You've been in office for 7 months. At that rate, you've got 14 months until you've hit all 60.
Again, that is an entirely inaccurate presupposition. I do not have an enemies list. You can continue to characterize it as you wish. The only actions we take, generally speaking, for personnel at the FBI are ones based on merit and qualification and your ability to uphold your constitutional duty. You fall short, you don't work there anymore.
A federal judge called him not credible. Whitehouse read it aloud. Patel confirmed the words were his. Sheldon Whitehouse walked into that hearing room with a single piece of paper, not a binder, not a stack of documents. One piece of paper, a direct quote, Kash Patel's own words, made publicly about what he planned to do to journalists and government officials he considered enemies. We're going to come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly. He placed it on the table. He turned to Patel. He asked one question. Is that a correct quotation? Patel had two choices. Deny it or confirm it. He confirmed it. Senator, that's a partial quotation, but it's correct in part, not taken out of context, not misattributed, not disputed. His words, confirmed under oath, in front of the entire Senate Judiciary Committee. And that was just the beginning, because Whitehouse didn't come with one document. He came with a case, a judge's written ruling, Republican officials on record, an enemies list, a threatening video, and he walked through all of it, one by one, methodically, with Patel sitting right there across the table, unable to go anywhere. Watch what happens when a senator arrives fully prepared, and the man across from him has nowhere to go. Let me tell you who Sheldon Whitehouse is, because the background matters here. Before the Senate, Whitehouse served as the Attorney General of Rhode Island and as a United States Attorney. He spent years prosecuting cases, building legal arguments, presenting evidence in courts of law. He is not a politician who performs for cameras. He is a lawyer who constructs a case piece by piece, systematically, with the patience of someone who has done this hundreds of times before. When Whitehouse is down in a hearing room, he has done the work beforehand. He doesn't arrive with talking points. He arrives with documents, with exact quotes, with dates and names and judicial findings. And he builds toward a conclusion the way a prosecutor builds toward a verdict, not by attacking, but by accumulating. Kash Patel had never served a single day as an FBI agent before taking the role of director. He had worked in Trump's first administration. He had served as a congressional staffer on the House Intelligence Committee. He had spent years publicly attacking the very institution he was now running. He had written a book listing his perceived enemies in government. He had appeared on dozens of podcasts. He had made statements, many of them, that his critics had carefully cataloged. The hearing room was packed. Outside in the hallway, supporters had been waiting in line for hours. Inside, Republican senators sat ready to defend their man. Democrats sat quietly and waited their turn. Whitehouse had a plan. He started not with Patel, but with January 6th. He opened not with an attack, but with a warning. Not about Patel directly, about the political moment they were all living through and what it meant for the vote they were about to cast. He described January 6th from the inside. Colleagues running through the halls of the Capitol trying to flee. A Republican colleague shouting that the rioters should be shot. Senators eventually returning to their constitutional duties through corridors that had been cleared by SWAT teams carrying automatic weapons. Then he made a point that was simple but difficult to dismiss. For a long time after that day, not a single senator from either party had called for pardoning the people who stormed the building. A Republican colleague had called the idea hard to believe, even absurd. J.D. Vance said violent rioters should not be pardoned. Jim Jordan said any pardon should be limited strictly to those who had not committed violence. Then Trump pardoned all of them, all 1,500. More than 600 of those individuals had physically attacked Capitol Police officers. They were released and put back on the street. Whitehouse said something that landed quietly but with weight. Every time you think Trump would never go that far, rethink that He then brought up a separate pardon that had received far less public attention. A dark web operator sentenced to life in prison for running an illegal drug marketplace. A man accused of soliciting murders for hire. Trump pardoned him too. These decisions are not random. Whitehouse said they are a signal that the rules have changed, that we have entered a strange and dangerous time. That warning about what this administration was willing to do was a foundation he was building before he said a single word directly about Patel. Then Whitehouse did something deliberate and clearly thought through in advance. He didn't cite Democrats. He didn't quote liberal critics or opposition voices. He read into the record what Republicans, Trump's own people, the people who had actually worked alongside Patel, had said about him. Former Attorney General Bill Barr, a Trump loyalist, one of the most consequential law enforcement officials in recent Republican history. Barr said Patel had virtually no experience that would qualify him to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency. Barr also said Patel would never be able to command the respect necessary to run the day-to-day operations of the Bureau. That's Bill Barr, former CIA Director Gina Haspel, another Trump appointee. She was reported to have threatened to resign rather than allow Patel to serve under her. John Bolton, Trump's own former national security advisor, said he did not think Patel was qualified for the roles he had been given, stated plainly that he had been forced to hire him, and then Whitehouse quoted Trump's own deputy national security advisor, the person who had been Patel's direct supervisor inside the administration. This person said, and Whitehouse read the words carefully, his ideas are ludicrous. He is absolutely unqualified for this job. He is untrustworthy, and it is an absolute disgrace to even consider an individual of this nature. Whitehouse let that settle. These were not opposition voices. These were senior Republican officials, Trump administration veterans, people who had sat in rooms with Patel, worked alongside him, supervised him, watched how he operated. Every single one of them had gone on record against him. Then he turned to what Patel had said in his own words. The quote was specific and unambiguous. We will go out and find conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. We're going to come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly. Whitehouse turned to Patel. Is that a correct quotation? Correct in part. He did not deny the substance. He confirmed the words were his. Whitehouse moved on immediately. He brought up a threatening video. Is that you reposting that at the top of that page? Patel said he had nothing to do with creating it, but when pressed, he confirmed it was him in the video. He confirmed he had reposted it. Then Whitehouse raised a claim Patel had made publicly, that FBI agents themselves had been responsible for the violence on January 6th. Beyond a reasonable doubt, Patel had said, the Inspector General of the Department of Justice investigated that specific claim. The conclusion was that it was false. Whitehouse stated that plainly and moved on. He addressed Patel's public calls to impeach federal judges who had ruled against Donald Trump. Patel had described those judges using his own language, political terrorists. Each point was placed on the record in sequence. Whitehouse didn't pause to editorialize between them. He stated the fact, gave Patel the opportunity to respond, confirmed what could be confirmed, moved immediately to the next one. The method was deliberate. He wasn't trying to embarrass Patel in a single exchange. He was building a record. The accumulation was the argument. Then Whitehouse produced what may have been the sharpest single piece of evidence in his entire statement. It wasn't a quote from a podcast. It wasn't a secondhand account from a colleague. He told the committee that Patel had testified under oath before a Colorado federal judge, a sitting federal judge, presiding over a Trump-related case in which Patel appeared as a witness. That judge reviewed Patel's testimony line by line and committed a finding to writing. The judge concluded that Patel was not a credible witness. The judge's written assessment stated that his testimony was not only illogical, but completely devoid of any evidence in the record. Whitehouse read those words deliberately and without commentary. Not a credible witness. Illogical. Completely devoid of any evidence. That is not a political characterization. That is a federal judge's written finding about sworn testimony delivered in a court of law. Whitehouse let it register. Then he said what the entire statement had been building toward. There is an unfathomable difference, he told the committee, between a facade being constructed around this man in this hearing room and what he has actually done and said in the real world when left to his own devices. Conduct shows character. For words, said quietly, left to stand on their own. Whitehouse closed with something larger than the hearing itself. He didn't end with another quote or another piece of evidence. He reached into history. He said that if you study what has happened in other countries and other political periods, a recognizable pattern emerges in how authoritarian systems operate, specifically in how the people placed in charge of security services tend to behave and what they're willing to do for whoever holds power. He listed the qualities that tend to define those figures. They are vengeful. They are grandiose. They are intemperate. They are blindly loyal to whoever holds power. And they are servile. They do not push back. They do not draw lines. They do not say no. Whitehouse said he was afraid that the documented record of Patel's own public conduct raised exactly those warnings. He was not making a direct accusation. He was laying out a pattern, making the comparison explicit, and asking his colleagues to weigh it seriously before casting their votes. The room was quiet when he finished. Patel sat at the witness table and said nothing. Whitehouse yielded his remaining time. When the votes were eventually counted, only 2 Republicans broke with their party. Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. Collins said there is a compelling need for a leader at the FBI who is decidedly apolitical. Murkowski said her reservations came directly from Patel's own prior political activities. 2. Out of the entire Republican caucus, 2 women willing to put on the record the enemies list Whitehouse had referenced in the hearing, documented in a book Patel authored called Government Gangsters, named roughly 60 individuals he had identified as targets. Whitehouse later estimated that Patel had already taken some form of adverse action against 20 of them. The threat against journalists was never walked back. And the judge's finding, not a credible witness, illogical, completely devoid of any evidence, is now part of the permanent record of the man running the FBI. 1 piece of paper, 1 question, 2 choices. Patel chose to confirm it.